All right, what's going on, guys? Sal here. Today we're going to be looking at this Week 10. It's already Week 10 in the NFL. The season it ages like fine wine, and it goes by way too quick. More than halfway through. Now we're getting into double digits Week 10. The first look lineup, going to preview this week right now on Draftkings. See if we can build a lineup for cash game purposes, see what we like. And look back at Week 9 really quickly. Week 9 wasn't a terrible week for me from a cash game perspective, but just overall a process perspective, it wasn't the greatest. I played a lot more tournaments because I thought I had an edge on some of the plays that I was playing, and I'll get into those. And then from cash, it wasn't bad. I just didn't play enough cash to kind of nowhere near really cancel out my tournament losses. So I didn't have good leverage there. So basically what I did in cash was I had Gurley and Kamara. I stacked up that pair. And then I got exposure to O.J. Howard and Ryan Fitzpatrick. So those four really just carried me along. I think those four alone got upwards of 110, 120, somewhere in that range points-wise. So that helped me a lot because I had guys like Courtland Sutton, DJ Moore in cash who were basically just complete flops. I mean, Sutton at 3,900 getting you like 9 points isn't a complete flop. But somebody like DJ Moore, I think he only had a couple of receptions. And when Curtis Samuel got the work out there, who I had in some tournaments. So this is basically... did well in cash still. I think I cashed in on 70-something, 71% of my cash game lineups, which is obviously great, but I didn't have enough cash game play, enough weight on my cash games. Only played in like 100 cash game tournament, or head-to-heads is all I did, 100 of them, and at like $2 each, so I didn't have enough there to really leverage what I was doing in tournaments. And this was just a week that I didn't feel comfortable too much in cash. I didn't really like playing the thin DJ Moore, the thin Curtis or Courtland Sutton, and that's why in tournaments I completely faded him. I thought Sutton was going to be upwards of 40% owned. He only came in at like 30% in some bigger tournaments, 28% in one of the ones I was looking at. I don't think it was a Millie Maker. And then DJ Moore like 20% owned, and he was just another guy who I thought was pretty thin from a tournament perspective because maybe he gets you 6 catches for 80 yards, possibly a touchdown, but that's really his ceiling right now, and maybe going forward it'll be higher, but it's just inconsistent the way Cam spreads the ball around. Greg Olsen back out there, always have McCaffrey. Obviously Funchess is going to garner some targets, and so they like using Samuel in the gadget role like we saw. Sutton I just didn't really believe too much in. Obviously I believe in him long term, but too much to garner the fact that playing him would mean that 40% of other people played him, so even if he goes off, you still have to conquer another hurdle in your lineup somewhere else, whereas if you don't have him, you already have beat 40% of the field basically. So shifting them, I thought I would have a lot more success. My only downfalls came was basically I had a lot of players that went off. I had Travis Kelce, I had Patty Mahomes, all those things. I just never had them in the same lineups, and it ultimately cost me. But that was just Week 9, just a recap. I appreciate you guys sticking forward for all these videos. We're going to look at Week 10 right now, see what we can do first look. Then I'll look at the Thursday night slate on the next video that's going to come out later today. But thank you guys if you've already been here. If you haven't subscribed, subscribers went up like another 120 over the past week. That's absolutely nuts. I spent months just trying to get like 50 subscribers, and in a few weeks we're at almost 300. My goal is to get to 500 subscribers, and I've been talking to Draftkings about getting a free Millie Maker entry giveaway for the 500 subscribers. We could do like a little contest. So if you want to enter a comment on this video below, you'll be entered into that contest whenever I hit 500 subscribers. The goal is to get it this week. So if you guys can just hit subscribe if you're watching this video, drop a comment below on basically who you think is going to score the most points in the, let's do Thursday night slate. Who do you think is going to score the most points in the Thursday night slate between the Steelers and the Panthers? Pretty decent Thursday night matchup. Hit a like on this video as well. I appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed already and you've been here for a while, which I know a lot of people are watching without subscribing, I get it. I mean, it takes a little extra effort, but if you could, just go ahead and hit that subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Greatly appreciate it. I think it's down here. It might be down here. I don't know with the camera. But thank you guys so much. Let's get into this this first look lineup now for Week 10. So starting on quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes as always is priced up again, and it just doesn't matter with this guy because he's throwing for 300 yards every week, and he's probably going to throw for 3 touchdowns with the weapons they have out there. Kareem Hunt is becoming just an absolute monster in that offense lately. Another 2 touchdowns for him, and again 30 points. He's basically hitting on his average. 30.5 points is his average. I want to play him every single week, and at home against Arizona, they're like 18-point favorites. I saw at some books 18.5. So that scares you about how long he'll be playing. But obviously, if they're going to be 18-point favorites, they have to get up to that number somehow. I think Kareem Hunt's obviously a force to be reckoned with, but I think Patty Mahomes is the person that fuels that offense, and that's kind of undisputed at this point. Aaron Rodgers at 6,400. He was priced in this similar range on a few weeks back, and he doesn't. Yeah, 6,400 against the Rams, and it's just that offense is just very inconsistent. He said it himself last night in the post game. They're just very inconsistent. They could have drives that click, and then they either have a turnover or they're play calling from Mike McCarthy, who was just one of the worst play callers. Mike McCarthy was a good play caller 7 years ago when he had a ton of great weapons, and the NFL wasn't a league where you would pass to the running back or have these dual threat running backs, which Mike McCarthy has in Aaron Jones, or at least an elusive one, and he just doesn't use them properly. And just throwing fade routes and back shoulder passes, again, it worked in 2011 when the Packers were one of the best offenses ever, but it's just not working these days because people can guard fade routes because they're so low percentage, and you don't have the connection between Aaron Rodgers and Jordy Nelson or Aaron Rodgers and Greg Jennings. You have to use the middle of the field. They don't do that, so he's having trouble out there. Back-to-back poor weeks, but this could be a buy low spot. I don't think I'm going to do it in cash because he's not a low price, but in tournaments it could be a buy low ownership spot. Drew Brees had a nice game. Alvin Kamara stole some touchdowns away. Kamara got a lot of work. Much more productive than Ingram, and I'm sure we'll get into that. Drew Brees, though, he had a great game. Him and Jared Goff basically were toe-to-toe in ownership, and they were toe-to-toe in the points that you got out of him. So if you paid down a little $100 more for Jared Goff, maybe it got you up to somebody else last week. Jared Goff, again, at $6,100. This guy's price just doesn't come up. I talked about this the past few weeks. He's staying right around $6,000 or $6,100 basically every single week here. As you can see, he went up to $6,600 one week, but it's just $6,000 below that in the 5K range, and it's because I think people still don't trust in him. I think they see Todd Gurley, people flash towards there, which the man has like 16 touchdowns, so it makes sense. He's going to steal some potential away from Goff. But with Cooper Kupp back, Jared Goff went right back to the old way, almost threw for 400 yards. If he's playing a good offense, you play Jared Goff. That's how it goes, right? Past 2 weeks, he played a good offense, he did well. 2 weeks before that, didn't play good offenses, didn't do well. Did decent against Seattle, which was a shootout, which was basically his floor in good offense games of 19. And then he obviously played good offenses against the Chargers and Minnesota, and he did well. So I think this week he's going up against Seattle again. That was a shootout last time. This time it's in Los Angeles. I don't see it being much of a shootout. We just saw Seattle lose at the buzzer, which was a great game, but they looked terrible for the majority of that game. I don't think I want to go Jared Goff here. Tom Brady against Tennessee at Tennessee. Decent matchup, $6,000 price. I like that range for Tom Brady. He's a guy who's just going to complete a lot of passes, and then it's up to James White or Edelman to basically get down the field on those passes like we saw last night. Fitzpatrick at $5,900 at home against Washington. Don't hate it. While Ha-Ha-Clinton-Dix is in that secondary, so many people think Ha-Ha-Clinton-Dix is this great athlete, great player in football because he came out of Alabama. He had a good rookie year. He had a good second year either. The man can't tackle now. We saw it. He got stiff-armed into literally 3 feet into the ground by Julio Jones. It's no coincidence that, I don't think it's a coincidence that Washington's secondary looked a little shaky when they acquired Ha-Ha. I don't think he's an upgrade. I think that was a great move by the Packers to get rid of him. I think that's something that Fitzpatrick can pick apart, but Fitzpatrick wasn't spectacular either. He had a good game fantasy-wise, but 60% completion percentage, but he had a couple of overthrows, and obviously he threw the 2 picks, had a fumble, and that's just, it seems like that's their offense. It's just go big or go home, and people are making too many mistakes. If you had a quarterback who didn't make mistakes in that offense, it would be ridiculous, that offense. But Fitzpatrick is somebody who's going to make a mistake. I don't like to play him only because they could go back to Jameis at any time if Fitzpatrick throws 3 more interceptions against Washington, who does have, again, a terrible secondary, but they have playmakers out there. They have Swearinger, they have Norman. I don't want to go there right now. Phillip Rivers, $6,000 against Oakland. This is something I want to look at. Against Oakland on the road, but it's not really much of a road game. We just saw how bad Oakland looked like, so maybe there's some bounce back, but they just dropped Bruce Irving. They literally have no pass rush at all now, and they just gave up another pass rusher who they could have got a draft pick for, but I don't know what's going on there in Oakland. Phillip Rivers, solid as always. 17 points might get people off of him. Melvin Gordon came back, had a touchdown over 100 yards, so that took some the money away, if you can say. But they were up a lot in this game. I mean, the whole game they were basically leading by 2 touchdowns most of the second half. So it was really just a running the clock out. He only threw 26 times. He hasn't thrown that much this year at all, actually. Being very efficient, but I think this is a game where Phillip Rivers could be good, and a game where I see him getting 2 touchdowns. Nick Mullins went for 3 tutties and 260 yards against this Oakland defense. So I like Phillip Rivers there. Let's see if we can get any other value. Andrew Luck against Jacksonville at home. Jacksonville's not the same team that used to be. Andrew Luck throwing the ball a ton. That's interesting at only $5,500. Other than that, not really seeing much. So I think I like Phillip Rivers. Andrew Luck I do like. I like Brady. And obviously paying up to Mahomes is always an option. Paying up to Mahomes I'd like to try. I don't like paying up a quarterback, but I'd like to try that. Let's try and come back there, but let's for now just plug in to see what we can get money-wise. Middle of the pack, let's go Phillip Rivers, 6K. See what we could build from there. I'm just going to plug in literally a cheap $2,300 defense. I like to do that. $2,300 this week is the Browns against Atlanta at home. I'll take it. I mean, they're a decent defense. Obviously not a great matchup. Atlanta's offense is incredible, especially in the red zone, which is something we were never saying last year, but now we're saying that a ton. They completely turned around. Julio got in the end zone. That was great to see for Julio. So that just lets us know at $2,300 what we can do if we went low, really low at defense, which I don't really like paying up. I know the Bears killed it this past week, and it was a spot where Nathan Peterman starting the lowest QBR in the history of the league at like 32. Absolutely terrible. 2 more turnovers, a fumble and an interception for touchdown. So that's a spot where you could obviously pay up. Buffalo's not on the main slate this week. I think they're on bye. So that's a situation where paying up makes sense, but most of the time I'd rather save $1,300 where I can go up at a running back or go up at a quarterback even. If I want to go up to Mahomes, you can get there if you save up from this guy to go down to this guy. We can go to Mahomes and if the time comes. So let's just see now what we can work with at running backs. I want to squeeze in the best running backs as always. We have all the great running backs on this slate right now, outside of maybe like Christian McCaffrey. We have Kamara, who's back up to 8,700, priced ridiculously low at 7,300 last week. Got in the end zone 3 times. Maybe he saw how bad his price was and that was a chip on his shoulder because he just went off for 33 points. If you had him and you had Michael Thomas, which is easy to fit in your lineup because they were both priced down, they got you like 75 points between the two of them. So ridiculous stat line between the two of them. And then if you stack them with Drew Brees, the 3 of them got you like 110 points alone. That's absolutely ridiculous. You probably won a lot of tournaments, probably won all your cash game lineups that way. So I want to fit Kamara in if possible. He's got a good matchup against Cincy. Kareem Hunt's just been crushing it in a huge game where they're favored by 18 points. You would imagine Kareem Hunt's going to touch the ball at least 20 times, right? He's going to touch the ball at least 20 times on the ground, probably have 4 or 5 targets in the air because that's what he's been getting in the air for the past like 4 weeks on average. 17 touches. This man makes a lot of things happen on limited touches, as you can see, 8 yards per carry, 5.7, 5.4 yards per carry. He's just very efficient in his touches, and he's getting work in the passing game. Huge touchdown. His touchdowns are going to regress, right? They're not going to stay at 2 touchdowns a game. Probably not even 1 touchdown every single game. But in that offense, it's definitely a capability. At 8,500, he's the 4th most expensive guy. Also, James Conner is not on this slate. I didn't play him. I hate that I didn't play him because I thought he was in a great spot with low ownership and a decent price last week. Now we see all these guys priced up. Melvin Gordon's been just as productive and just as consistent as some of these top running backs. His floor is basically 20 points like we're seeing from everybody else. He's had a ton of 30-point games, 3 or 4 of them to be exact. Got a good matchup against Oakland. That's somebody that you could pair with Phillip Rivers if you wanted to. David Johnson's back on this main slate against the Chiefs. That's a good matchup for him. We saw Chubb got like 85 yards and a touchdown. He got like 15, 16 points against his Chiefs. But they're 18-point underdogs. How much are they actually going to stay in this game? I don't know. Marlon Mack back on this slate at home. I like that. Chubb home against Atlanta. He was priced up a little bit now, $900. I like that a lot for this, though, is where pass-catching running backs do their damage, right? So this is definitely very risky, and I don't think it's sustainable at all because we just saw it this past week at $4,700. Duke Johnson, he's a pass-catching back. He had 9 catches. He caught all of them. 9 targets, caught all of them. So obviously they want to get the ball in Johnson's hands with new offensive coordinator, new head coach. It makes sense. Chubb still got his work. Not going to get any carries. But against Atlanta in pass-catching downs, I believe Atlanta's probably going to be the favorite in this game. So they're probably going to be trailing at some point in the game. At least that's what the spread indicates. Let's plug Duke Johnson in here. Obviously, it's a risky thing for cash because he's only going to catch the ball. He's not getting any upside in terms of going to get you 20 touches, but if he can get you 10 touches and they're all receptions against Atlanta too, that's really what we're doing here is a matchup-based. Can we get 15 points out of him at that price? I think so. I think he can catch 6-7 balls in this game, and he can go for 50, 60 yards, and then if he gets in the end zone, he hits Mac, he crushes value at 4,700. We'll come back to that because I don't feel completely comfortable doing that. Gurley against Seattle. Last time he played Seattle, he had a very good game, as he's had literally all year. Yep, he had 177 yards, 56 in the air, and 3 touchdowns on the ground. Gurley against Seattle, obviously you never want to fade Gurley. Again, he had a good weekend if we go back to this. 20 points is his floor. He finally had his floor game, and at $9,500, that's not going to hit it. He had that all in basically the first half because he got that touchdown on the first drive, and he kind of just went back. They had him bottled up. It's as simple as that. He still did well on the ground, but they were trailing him the whole game. Even though he's a pass-catching back, as you can see with the 7 targets, he's a 3-down back all-purpose. They were trailing big for, what, more than half of the game, so they were in a pass script for a lot of that game. That took him out of it. In this game, they shouldn't be in that pass script. I think he might have some ownership come off of him because of that down game and because of his price really not going too much down at all. I do like that. I'm going to plug Kareem Hunt in here just because they're going to be such huge favorites. You have to figure he's going to get 20 touches. Can we fit in the flex if we do this? Because we have a cheap running back here. Can we fit Gurley, Kamara? Mixon against the Saints isn't awful either. That should be a very high-scoring game. Haven't looked at the total in that one. Can we go flex here, and can we fit in? We have Kamara here against them. Let's see if we can fit in Kamara and not go Gurley. I know it's crazy to say it, but let's see that. Let's see what value we can find at tight end this week. David Njoku at 4,200. His price has come down. He's had 2 shaky weeks now. He's just not seeing the ball nearly as much as he did. Shaky week at 9.3 compared to his previous weeks because he had 5 targets compared to when he's seeing on average 7 targets a week. So maybe he's not going to be the focal point as much with Duke Johnson stealing 9 targets this past week, which is more than he's seen all year by far. Trey Burton got another touchdown, I believe, this past week. Something that continues to happen even when they were up a lot. They still threw the ball. Herndon's been decent. Watson did well, but I think that's more of a matchup because of Los Angeles just isn't great against tight ends. They're not good in the middle of the field. They're really not good in the secondary at all. Kind of want to go back to David Njoku here at 4,200 with a great matchup against Atlanta, middle of the field. They funnel passes to the tight end. They funnel passes basically to in front of the stick so they can gang tackle you. And David Njoku is going to catch them downfield, but he'll catch a lot in the sticks. We have all the way priced up O.J. Howard, as he should be, finally getting priced up to where he belonged to be at that price range. I think I'm going to go David Njoku, though, to see what value then we could find at wide receiver. We're going to probably have like 5K. Yeah, so we're going to have 5K. So you can basically find one really value guy, get up at one wide receiver spot. If we just look at the rest of the running backs here, just to see if there's any other value, Peterson's going to come down in price a little bit. Yeldon's back on this slate, but Carlos Hyde's out there. Not sure how that's going to go. Sony Michel, we could track Sony Michel, but on the road against Tennessee is not something I ever want to touch, especially since he's a pass-catching back. Aaron Jones at 5K at home. Probably going to get more work. We saw him fumble, but the man just keeps averaging incredible yardage. 5.4 yards per carry. He was well on his way to 100 yards until he basically fumbled, and then the game got out of hand. It became a pass script game for the Packers in the fourth quarter. He probably would have touched 100 yards on like 18 touches with this guy's skill set. He had 4 targets as well, or I think he had 2 or 4 targets in that game, so that's good to see. Yeah, I don't feel comfortable starting Duke Johnson, but it's just the situation that he's in. But again, he might touch the ball 5 times, and if it's 5 catches for 50 yards, that's only 10 points. That's not great for cash, so we might want to come back off of that. We'll check it out, though. Let's see what we could find value at wide receiver. Julio back up to being the most priced guy without Adam Thielen on the slate, without Antonio Brown on the slate. It makes complete sense to me. Michael Thomas went off. He had the phone in the end zone. He had him in both of them, they said. People were saying, what if he didn't score in that end zone? He had both flip phones in both. I think that was very funny. The announcers were just giving him so much crap. I think Troy Aikman, you just got to get over it. Let the guys have fun, you know what I'm saying? It's a game. He's just having fun out there. Who cares about if it's not unsportsmanlike penalty at that point? It doesn't matter. He was up by like 10 scores. If it was, I don't think, even if he does it, you're kicking it off the penalty zone, so who cares? He had a great game. He finally came back. Obviously, he's not going to continue that, but in a game against Cincinnati, 8,100, I still don't think he's priced up enough. Devontae Adams just keeps producing in a tough matchup against Gilmore last night. He still did well on 9 targets. He got you 16 points, which is basically that guy's floor. Rodgers missed him on like 2 other passes where he would have been open. So we got Phillip Rivers. We would like to pair him with Keenan Allen, who's his most targeted, Keenan Allen did great this past week, 24 points. Second half of the year, there's a stat that came out, I mentioned it last week. Second half of the year is when Allen's his production overall and his fantasy production, it basically goes up by like 70%. It's absolutely ridiculous. He just loves cold weather. Great matchup this week for Keenan Allen. Let's plug him in there, and then let's see if we can just get down now. 4,200. We don't know what's happening with A.J. Green. That can make Tyler Boyd a very incredible play. And this news came out before these slates came out, so you can see Tyler Boyd priced all the way up there at 7,500, as he probably should be. But now I'm not touching him. If A.J. Green's out, then I maybe come back to him. Go down here, we see all these Rams wide receivers. They're all priced right in a bunch like that, and that's how it's probably going to be for the entire year because you don't know who's going to get their work when. Last night it was Brandon Cooks and Cooper Kupp got in the end zone. Robert Woods had a decent amount of targets. I saw him convert a couple of them, but so this is how Robert Woods' season has been for the last like 3 weeks. So 5 receptions every single week, 7 to 9 targets, 70 yards. So really, if he gets in the end zone, he's the good receiver to have that week, right? Instead of Cooks and Kupp. Kupp seems like the most consistent one just because he's in that slot and he's basically the red zone guy. Yesterday, he broke a long touchdown, which is not rare for Cooper Kupp. We saw him do it against Minnesota, but he kind of showed some of his speed, I guess you can say. Landry continuing to get the targets, another good matchup, but he didn't do it. I know he came out of the game for a little while, but he didn't do it last week. Josh Gordon at 6K, he's priced pretty far down, especially because he had 100 yards last week. I mean, kind of a broken play, kind of just Jamal Williams not being able to tackle him, similar to Clinton Dix not being able to tackle Julio, 2 monster receivers. That's really what got him into this insane game. If he doesn't have that catch, or if he gets tackled where he gets tackled, he finishes decent game, right? He finishes with like 5 catches for, it's probably like 90 yards and a touchdown, or no touchdown. So it's definitely not the same. He has half the points that he would have had, more than half. But I do like his price there. T.Y. Hilton price all the way down to 5,700 against Jacksonville makes complete sense then. MVS Scantling is becoming a monster here at 5K. Maybe we could afford him as well. So yeah, you see he's getting limited receptions, but I think that's going to change. He's basically this deep threat for the Packers now. He had a couple of great catches last night. Rodgers trusts him a ton. If they can get this offense going against Miami, where I think we're going to see Xavier Howard going towards more of Devontae Adams, I think Scantling makes for an interesting option. He's just not somebody I don't think we can afford him this week. You plug him in there, laptop being a little slow, 3,500 you'd have to come to. We could go down at maybe a running back spot, but I don't think he's worth going down for in this lineup. Where can we get Cobb? I think is also very sneaky at 4,900, but I'd rather play Scantling. Where can we get targets here? Down in this area, Devontae Parker at 42. Godwin at 4,000 against Washington. Godwin's a guy who's basically, he's touchdown dependent at this point. Not a guy you want to play in cash, touchdown dependent. You want targets. But we're in a pretty low range here. Let's get off of Godwin for this second. Humphrey's been playing well. He's still priced pretty cheap. Don't want to touch him though, especially because he's probably going to garner a lot more ownership. Not really a big deal in cash, but not something I really want to touch on. I don't know. These guys down here aren't the greatest. I mean, Harris against Tampa Bay is not terrible, I guess. He got a ton of targets, I think, like the past 2 or 3 weeks with Crowder out of the lineup. So yeah, basically just this week, I think he played. Yeah, he got 8 targets his first week. Had a good game, but I think that's something I want to fade. I don't want to stick on to that. Oh, cash is just rough right now if this is the way we want to go with this lineup. Let's see if we do something else here. I don't want to play, actually, and I was going to say let's go Andrew Luck at 5,500. Not something that I want to play. There's really just nothing else down here. Stafford at Chicago is not something I want to play. Stafford has had a terrible year. I'd rather stick at 6K with against a great matchup with Rivers. You could maybe come down to one of the other wide receivers out there. Allen's the most consistent. We're already going down at flex here with running back and Duke Johnson. Where can we find value in this range down here? We need 2 guys at value, cash-based value. Amendola, with Kenny Stills coming back, Amendola still saw targets. He likes him out there. Osweiler likes him a lot. Let's see if we plug Amendola in at 4,200. We're going to have to find even more value now, maybe the 3K range. Not really something I want to do at 4K. Not really a lineup I like building. You can go Godwin here. Patterson's not something I want to play at all ever. I know that he's running the ball out there, but I think Michel's going to be back sooner than later, and he's going to go back to his old role. Antonio Callaway against Cleveland getting some work. Washington against Tampa in Tampa. So I don't hate that. Looking at this, I don't hate that. This is not going to be my final lineup, though. I can tell you that right now. My battery's about to die, so let me change that battery so this whole thing doesn't get lost. But looking at that, I don't hate it, but let's just change this battery real quick. Yeah, so I just changed my battery after looking at this lineup again. Kind of do hate it, to be honest with you. I don't mind, obviously, Kamara and Kareem Hunt as a pair. Duke Johnson's definitely very interesting against Atlanta. I think they're going to script to get him the ball more in the air. So it's really just, can he do what he did this past week, which I don't think he can do what he did this past week. But can he catch 5 or 6 balls for 50 yards? Is there even upside if he does that? I don't really think there is. I love Rivers and Allen. So these two I do like, and I do like these 2 running backs. It's just these receivers right here. Amendola's a guy who's going to have to get you 7 catches and fall in the end zone to be value. And the same for Godwin, really. He's going to have to fall in the end zone. He's just not seeing as much work, especially now with Humphreys playing really well. He's definitely a riskier play. So let's see, can we find better value in the running backs instead of just going for these high-priced guys? Can we find better values a little lower to come up at wide receiver this week? Like I said, David Johnson as an 18-point underdog, not somebody I want to touch at his price. If he's in the 5Ks, maybe we consider it, but he's almost 7K. Marlon Mack against Jacksonville is definitely a bad matchup if you look at it on paper, but Jacksonville hasn't been that great this year. Zeke had their way with him. Is Marlon Mack Zeke? I don't think so, but Marlon Mack has been pretty damn good this year. Chubb against Atlanta, so this is basically, who do you like? Do you like Duke Johnson or Chubb? Johnson's cheaper, and he's going to catch more balls than Chubb, but I don't mind that matchup, but we're not saving any money off of Duke Johnson, right? It's just, do we want to come down to Kareem Hunt? Do we want to come down to Kamara? I really don't. I want to play both those guys. I don't really see another running back down here at all that I like. Carry-on all the way at 4,700 with Theo Riddick back. He fell off the face of the earth. We saw his fumble, went back for a touchdown. That hurt them. Maybe that limits his touches. I shouldn't, but it might. You know who looked good? He was on 55% of the snaps, was Elijah McGuire for the Jets. Playing in Buffalo this week. Low-scoring game, very much in the possibility. $3,400 isn't bad, though. Obviously, he only had 10 touches, 15 opportunities, or 10 touches on 12 opportunities. So you don't like that. That's something we can monitor for tournaments, not playing that in cash. Duke Johnson's very sketchy for cash, but this is the lineup I'm looking at right now. If I want to go back one more time, just look at value wide receivers even more, or maybe even value tight end. I know we're already at 4,200, anything in the 3K range. Herndon's been decent. Buffalo's been very susceptible. Herndon getting the ball a decent amount, getting conversions on his passes from Darnold, but Darnold's been absolutely awful. Not somebody I ever want to touch. Camera adjustment, there we go. Not somebody I want to touch, or any of his pass catchers, really. Ricky Seals-Jones, I think, is going to be a monster. Good matchup against Kansas City. But David Njoku didn't do really too much against Kansas City. They're going to have to pass the ball. They're going to be in a pass script. So let's see. This will be my first look. Again, this is the first time I'm even looking at it, so I have to digest this more. Not a lineup I'll probably end up going with. I like Ricky Seals-Jones a lot. You could see a couple weeks back on Thursday night, I kept bragging about him, put him in a couple of my captain spots. He ended up getting hurt, so that ruined that. Right now we have $1,200 more to play around with here. We can come at both of these spots, right? We don't have to settle for either of these guys. But now we're kind of thin at tight end, which really tight end's a punt any week if you're not going to pay up for the top 2 guys, or some weeks literally just Travis Kelce. Let's see, we can get $48.50 from each, which is a little bit better, especially if we pay down still. We can get one guy for a decent price. You can get MVS at home. Let's say we kept Amendola, because Amendola's seeing the targets out there. He's catching 4 balls for like 40 yards a week, and if he gets in the end zone, he gets you some work. You can get that. You can get up to 5,200 now. At 5,200, I like Doug Baldwin against the Rams. Their secondary's pretty buns. I like these 3 receivers right here: Galladay and Scantling and Baldwin. Secondary's pretty buns. The problem is Russell Wilson's just not throwing the ball. In this game, I think he's going to have to throw the ball. He threw the ball last time against Seattle, and I believe he still wasn't playing. Yeah, he wasn't playing in that game. No, he did play. That's the game that he had. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's the game that he had 1 catch on 1 target on the first drive, and you're like, okay, he got me 1.1 points. I played him that week in cash, and then he got you nothing. Do we go back to the well with him? I'm not sure, but it's in Los Angeles. They're going to be up probably big. They're going to have to be throwing in this game. I don't mind putting Doug Baldwin in. Kenny Galladay, I don't know what's going on in Detroit, in Chicago. I like his talent. I don't know if I like the matchup. Chicago secondary can be had, but I'm not sure I like it. Scantling at home against Miami is kind of where I want to go here. I think it's going to be a very popular option this week, maybe more of that cash. MVS has just been contributing, getting over 100 yards in 3 of his games, 3 of his 5 starts, I believe. Had like 80 yards and a touchdown in another one. I like him this week. I think the Packers get right at home. They probably couldn't put up 30 points against this Miami defense, especially at home. So at this point, it's either Scantling or Baldwin for me. And I think really it's who you want at this point, right? I think the game script's better for Baldwin. They're going to be behind. They're going to have to be throwing the ball. That's also probably why I like Ricky Seals-Jones a little bit. So this is just a first look lineup, right? First look at this thing. Not sold on any of this. Off of first look, this was probably the hardest first look I had to do, just because playing somebody like Duke Johnson is very thin, and these value wide receivers, sure, there's a lot of them down here, but none of them really stick out. Maybe I should be looking more at these Jacksonville wide receivers. They're just, all of them look the same to me, right? You don't know which one's going to go off, and in cash, just trying to choose between one of them is definitely risky, when 2 of them are probably going to have 5 points, and one of them will have 15 or 20. The lower you get, the worse it gets. Kenny Stills is pretty cheaply priced at $4,100. Not sure, though, that Brock Osweiler has been looking his way. I'm not sure he's fully healthy. Osweiler in the lineup, not too much there. Amendola seems to be the guy that they're looking at. Let's see what Parker did this past week. Amendola got those 7 targets. Parker priced a little bit lower, which is the same as what it was last week. Yeah, he didn't do too much. The whole offense really didn't do too much. It was an awful game. That's why it's crazy. You have the Bills, awful. Jets, awful. Dolphins, awful. Then you have the Patriots. It's just nuts how Tom Brady and those Patriots keep getting to the playoffs every year. Like, it blows my mind how they compete in that division. All right, but enough of that. This is a first look lineup. Maybe I come off with Duke Johnson. Maybe I try and fit Gurley in there. I think it's going to be tough this week. I think the value is going to be I think the strategy is going to be going at value at running back. Maybe going Marlon Mack. Maybe going Nick Chubb. And then coming up at wide receiver. I think that's a possibility if you were to do something like Chubb. And then you're going to do something like Marlon, guys who you know are going to get the ball, but guys who probably aren't in the greatest situations. You get $1,700 back here. Now you can get all the way up at $6,900. You can go ahead, you can play one of these receivers. You can go ahead, you can play Kupp. Maybe now you feel a little less thin, even though you're taking Hunt out of your lineup, who's 30-point upside, probably a floor of 15 to go for these guys. But I think Chubb has the same, if not better, upside than Duke Johnson. Marlon Mack's obviously no Kareem Hunt, but he has similar upside in the fact that he can go for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns, as we've seen this year him do. Pretty consistently in the past recent weeks. So I don't hate this either. Then you can come back up off of Amendola here at 5K, which is pretty thin, and you can go for somebody like MVS, which this lineup already going down at running back, you could see, in my opinion, it becomes a little more cash viable, meaning that Scantling's not going to get a ton of targets, but if Allison is out, even if he's not, I think he's still going to see a lot of snaps. You can get Kupp, who you know is safe in a game where they're going to be passing the ball, at least early on. So obviously not a finished lineup, just a first look. But I appreciate you guys watching this. Let me know any questions. Get active in the comments. Once we hit 500 subs, I think we're at basically hovering around 300 right now. We've already gone. I had 60 2 weeks ago, so we're on track to do that in a week and a half. Let's try and do it in a week. Once we hit 500 subs, if you're watching right now, you can hit that sub button. I appreciate it. Subscribe, hit the notification bell. Comment below who you think is going to score the most points on the Thursday night slate between the Steelers and the Panthers. Whoever gets it right, I'll shuffle out of those names, and we'll draw one, and you'll get a free ticket into the Millie Maker. It's a $20 value. Usually it's 10. If it's 10 that week, then you get basically 2 tickets, right? You're going to get $20. I'm going to try and work it out with DraftKings. Like this video. Appreciate you. Have any comments, ask any questions on the first look, what you think of these lineups I made. I thought this one was a little bit tougher, but we'll dive into it. We'll get a better picture by these practice reports Thursday, Friday, and we'll go from there. I appreciate you guys. Be good, be well, everybody. Best of luck if you're playing this Monday night slate tonight. Awful football game, but we'll see how it goes. My name's Sal. Be safe, everybody. Peace.